So I haven't got slides, I'm afraid, so you'll preferably put another browser on your screen so you don't have to look at my face. But it's a great pleasure to talk. I'm Tom. I'm a professor in occupational psychology and open scholarship at the University of Greenwich, and I am currently the editor-in-chief or co-editor-in-chief for the Journal of Open Psychology Data. So I think based on the conversations today, it's one of the oldest that we've spoken about. So it was started in 2013. I haven't been leading it since then. Only a couple of years since. But so this the JOPD accepts papers based from any discipline or domain within psychology, because we tend to find that a lot of them are little squirrel holes that people kind of go down. So it accepts anything within psychology and broadly psychology affiliated, I think we probably would be fair to say. And it was kind of born on the premise that we should be encouraging people to make data open. And so the predominant paper type or style that is accepted is a data paper. Basically, this is an incredibly transparent, detailed account of how a data set was created, how you can access it, what it means, what you could use it for. And the principle here was that a lot of data is created, ends up being hidden in people's private files. And in fact, a lot of good can be done from building upon that, trying to replicate findings, for example, is impossible, or reproduce findings rather, is impossible without having the data and those sorts of things. So it was designed as a sort of culture change initiative, more so than a journal. So when I took over, I sort of gave it a slightly different slant. So data papers were the bread and butter, if you will. We don't accept kind of normal write-ups of projects. We're only looking at transparent accounts of data files. I added what's known as verification reports as an additional type of analysis or a different type of paper that's accepted. And broadly speaking, these are, if you want to try and reproduce something that already exists, already has open data, then I think similar to some of the other journals spoken about today, we'll publish it regardless of whatever the results tell us, if you can be transparent about how you're going to try and reproduce this. There are more details on those sorts of processes on the website if you're interested. I think there's a few different things that we do. So instead of trying to structure it around our kind of process, I thought it might be useful just to highlight a few different things. One of which is at the moment we have an open spreadsheet of all the data files that have been published through us. It's not massive, hence why I was interested in Etienne's response earlier about why response numbers, submission numbers might be quite small. So it's not massive, but we tend to publish about 15 papers a year. And so we've now got a quite substantive spreadsheet that's openly available of all the different data files. So if people want to select and go, I would like a data file in clinical psychology or something, they can filter by that and it will show them all the different data files that we've published. So we think that there's a bit more that can be done as a journal. I think journals, or perhaps the traditional models of journal publishing, could be quite lazy. And they talk about added value, and that often means administrative burden to the authors. I think there's some things that journals can do to really promote what they do to try and get more submissions and more interest and have the culture change they want to. And so that's one of the sort of things that we try to do. So we've got that open spreadsheet of data. We also have a number of community outreach type activities to encourage people to work more in the space. So, for example, we've got quite a substantive mentoring scheme, and this is for people who want to work their way up the editorial hierarchy, for example. And so we've got somebody with us at the moment who is starting off by doing reviews, then they'll be handling reviews, and then they'll be co-making decisions with me as editor. So again, there's lots of things that we can do to enrich the process that I think is particularly helpful. As with some of the other places noted, we have special editions. So they tend to be themed on given topics within psychology. They tend to do quite well. Interestingly, when you put out a call for a specific research in a specific domain, again, might be something that other journals in this space might want to be thinking about. I know there's a little bit of an interesting debate about the role of special editions and certain journals using them in predatory ways. But I think it can be quite helpful if it involves the community trying to generate interest in this space on this particular theme. And something we always do is we publish the reviews we make decisions based upon alongside the paper. So it's the reviewers can choose to cover their name or not, or publish their name publicly, but we always publish that alongside the data files, which we think increases the transparency and such. Another role that we've recently set up within the editorial board at the Journal of Open Psychology Data is the role of verifier, because I think there's also an issue in this space of we put stuff out there, and then we do, or journals, I say journals typically do very little in going back and checking that everything still works, everything, the links and the access is still available. And so we have somebody dedicated within our editorial board to go back and look through those massive spreadsheets of data to check that people can still access it, that there still are no strange things that happen with links or certain repositories or otherwise that might make access more complicated. And so we do all of these things in the space, again, to try and promote the kind of culture change that we aim to do. And if anybody is interested, this might be a long shot. I'm about to step down as editor-in-chief, and we will be looking for a new editor-in-chief and indeed some further board members. So if anybody is interested in contributing to the journal in that sort of way, or indeed we might want to try the editorial system and mentoring scheme for those who aren't familiar with this sort of process, we'd love to hear from you. I've got a few interesting sort of statistics based on the journal. I'll try and be super quick. So we had 35 journal article submissions in 2025. Similar to what Etienne noted, quite a lot of them were out of scope. And by that, I mean not necessarily a clear journal article, certainly not a data paper, which is the core of what we publish. So that is problematic. We have yet to publish any verification reports, despite trying to promote it quite widely as an opportunity for things like replication. That hasn't quite gone to plan. Interestingly, the number of individuals we've requested for reviews in the last year have doubled. For similar amounts of reviews that we've received, we had to ask double the number of reviewers. And I think, again, that speaks to something in this space about what people see as the contribution and the value of replications and transparency and all the things that we like to talk about. But I can't leave you with that as a lasting thought. I've got to give you a positive. And my positive is that in 2025, the most top viewed article was indeed a very recent submission about the replication database, which many people on this call will be aware of. So it's a most viewed article in the Journal of Open Psychology Data. So there we go. Hopefully some interesting snapshots, but feel free to come back to me with any questions or thoughts either today or via email. Always happy to hear from you.